we're all starting the race at different parts, right? You know, I'm starting way back here, but somebody else is starting even further back from me. And to pretend that we're on even footing is really not acknowledging the privileges that we have. And we should do something to bridge those gaps. I really genuinely think we should.
My guest today is Cristina Amaya, and she's the president of Latinx Gaming, a community organization that was created to help increase Latinx representation throughout the video game industry. And throughout our conversation, she shares more about her goals for the future of the organization, and we cover her personal professional journey and all of the moves that she's had to make as a marketing executive in the industry. So let's get to know our move maker, Cristina Amaya. Well, welcome. I'm so excited for you to be here. How are we doing?
I'm good. It feels like Monday, but it's a Tuesday.
You know, it's funny because I actually thought that today was Wednesday. So I have no idea why I woke up and I thought it was Wednesday. So it's definitely one of those weeks.
It's definitely one of those weeks for sure.
Cool. Well, why don't you start by just introducing yourself to the podcast?
Absolutely. Hey, I'm Cristina Amaya. I am president and co-founder of Latinx Gaming. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, no, I'm so excited for you to be here. Tell me more about, I guess, you and your career. What was your first move into the games industry?
Man, so I actually started off by, I was a bartender in Florida
Nice.
back when I was 22, and I went through this heinous breakup. And so I moved to New York City on a whim. And so the first job I got was actually social media manager at a gaming org, but it was like through Craigslist. Like it was probably like that job probably any other time in that life wouldn't have existed, but it did at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I went to a digital ad agency, and I didn't really get back into gaming for another, I think, about 3 years. And then I was social media and gaming.
Okay, nice. And so going back into kind of social media and gaming at that job, how has that kind of progressed your career since then to where you are now?
My career has been a series of making choices, taking risks, just seeing what sticks. I've been laid off a couple times just because the projects haven't succeeded. Been laid off due to COVID. Like a whole ton of stuff has happened to me. And I think, each time it's a lesson of like, oh, it happens. Let's keep going. Let's keep trying our best. We'll definitely find a project that will be successful at later on.
I think that's a really important point. I think layoffs or job pivots are kind of inevitable. And I think a lot of times whenever you're kind of younger in your career, people seem to think of it as like only negative. And mind you, no one ever wants to get laid off. But I do think that there's a lot of opportunity in those kinds of things. Did you have a similar experience, or did it take you long to bounce back?
I'm really lucky in that I'm well connected in the industry. So like layoffs, when they do happen, I do bounce back. I'm able to come back. But I will say, I was at this job that was in a studio that was being shut down. And I remember they showed us this presentation on puppies. And so like if it was happy puppies, it meant that we would all get to keep our jobs and the game was successful. But if it was sad puppies, it meant that we were all being laid off. And so I exited that call and I called my manager, and he was like, you should start looking. So the day of the layoffs, I was actually interviewing at Twitch for a customer experience role, which I wasn't really sure I wanted, but I was like, you know what, let's just see, like I might be laid off any day. As I walk into the job interview, my company called me to let me know I've been laid off. Which was a great way to start an interview process. But the good news was I got the Twitch job, and you would think, man, you went from being a social media manager to customer experience. Like that feels like a step backwards. But I think without that customer experience job, I wouldn't be where I am now, first of all. And I probably wouldn't have some of the experiences and met some of the people I've met, regardless of where you work in Twitch. It's a pretty prestigious company to work at. And while being a customer service agent isn't exactly like the most glamorous job, I will say that I had an incredible team. I learned a lot. I got to learn a lot just by being at Twitch. So not trying to advertise Twitch, by the way, just, it was a really good time overall.
No, I think it's a good lesson to share. It's really about being agile and being able to say, hey, like, I need a job, and like I'm okay with like pivoting to something that helps me learn a new set of skills, maybe like connects me with more people. And I think it's really admirable because I know a lot of people kind of get fixated on like only heading in one direction. So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to say for that, and probably a lot of good lessons learned too.
Right. And it really depends on where you want to end up in the industry. Like I eventually want to be a VP or CMO, which means that I probably need to learn more than just events, right? Like as much as I love events and I love being in that part of that industry, like there are other aspects to marketing that it would be important and really relevant to learn.
You are correct. And there's, and I think the wonderful thing with marketing specifically is that there's no one path. You know, in gaming, it really is about, I think, being able to tell the best story and being able to connect the most dots. I think if you can get really good at that and connecting the right people and the right storylines and you know, bringing across the right message, you're going to be great and continue to be ambitious.
Right, right, absolutely.
Cool. Well, tell me more about Latinx in gaming. You mentioned you were president and a co-founder. I guess, when did you realize there was a need for an organization like this?
I always like whenever I attended GDC, I would notice that like blacks in gaming had stuff, women in gaming had stuff, but there was never really a space that was for Latinas, right? Like we didn't really have a meeting spot. Like sure, Xbox held something for like Mexican game devs, but like that was really focused and that was really insular. And it also, I remember attending it, and while I speak Spanish fluently, like some people were kind of mock my accent or not really take me seriously. And so I wanted to build our own space. So we made a panel at GDC called Latinx and Gaming, You Belong Here. And the panel's purpose was to just make people aware that you don't have to be a specific type of Latino to be in the community. Latinidad is such a celebration of diversity, right? There's so much to it. And you know, for me to say that you are not Latino because XYZ or XYZ, that feels unfair. That feels untrue to what it actually is to be Latino. So we did the panel and we found out it was so successful that we needed to clearly do some more stuff. So we started a Discord and a Facebook group, and then we've grown from there into a Twitter and a LinkedIn, and now we're a non-for-profit. We have like 5,000 members plus. Honestly, we're getting close to 10,000 members at this point. It's crazy. It's crazy to see like all the people that really care about either being an ally or are Latinx or are Latin or Latino, or however you want to describe yourself.
That's incredible. When was that GDC panel?
2018.
So in just 3 years and with a global pandemic in the midst, you've been able to grow your numbers and continue having these conversations. What's that been like, this growth, especially during this time?
So the first like 6 months of the pandemic, I was like perfectly fine. I was like, wow, love this work from home. I can get so much done, etc. It wasn't until obviously like the consistent, repetitive, like Groundhog Day-esqueness of this got to be more than 6 months that it finally caught up to me. But I was like super productive. I like got so much done. I like look back at some of the documents I made and some of the stuff, and I'm like, wow, like who was that girl? Like she's definitely a little bit more time. And a lot of it is about being gentle with myself and, you know, being gentle with ourselves too, right? Like, sure, there were productive times because we all thought, oh, what a fun vacation this will be for, you know, the first couple months. And then for this to be our new reality, it definitely crashed, you know, set in. And we're still doing great stuff. We're still achieving a lot. Like we have an incredible game plan for 2022, but it's a little less robust. And that's simply because I want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves as a team. You know, we really are a familia. We really care about each other, and I don't want our team to burn out.
Your team, for I guess the folks behind the organization and helping organize events, is that all US based, or are there, like, I guess, tell me more about the reach of the organization?
So it is all US based. We do have a director of LATAM, and he also manages a group of 12 people who are different representatives from their countries, just to help with any issues, pass stuff along. You know, if they want to be featured in something, if they have an event coming up, we're here to kind of help them. We definitely want to do more expansion into Latin America proper. I think it just is going to take time, because one of the things you'll find out is that people in Latin America who are like doing enough to be noticed in the US are usually doing like 2,000 things, right? And they just don't have time really to dedicate to like another project. And so we're trying to bring on people that have time and are passionate, and that also takes time and learning and making sure that we're doing right by them and they're doing right by us. Like I don't like having staff that we can't pay. And if we don't have the funds to pay them, then I would rather we wait and hold off on the work or find a way to get the funding.
That's really admirable. Because I think a lot of people, especially in a startup environment, especially a nonprofit, like,
Yeah.
give me all the volunteers, and so I think it's a good standard to set from the very beginning. And I think that's something that will clearly probably set you apart as an organization as you move forward, because I know that's something that not everyone seems to value. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. It's why, recently we had somebody be like, why haven't you redone the website? And it's like, we really want to, but the cost of that is monumental. And having, so I will say the original staff, like me, Judith Barbosa, Joe Jurado, Juan Vaca, Elaine Gomez, Fernando Reyes Medina, we did this out of labor of love, right? But I can't tell a young professional who needs a full-time job to take this type of work on and not get paid for it. I can't do that. Like the six of us financially, we're well off enough that we love this and this is what we want to do. And we've made those decisions. But, like I have people working for us who we do pay now on a monthly basis. And I couldn't imagine being like, well, your paycheck's gone,
Right.
I'm sure you didn't rely on that money at all. Like,
It's such a thing in the industry too. I'm sure this is in other industries, but I do know, I've heard of like companies kind of expecting like free labor because it's like, oh, well, you get the brand knowledge or like the brand experience or something to add on your resume. Like, I'm so happy that that is changing and that there are people in, positions like you are to say like, this is a standard that we are going to set and uphold. Whereas like, I know even like big companies will take any free work they can get.
it's so unfortunate, honestly, because I've heard of places recently, right, where people were asking for raises. People come to me to talk about work and to talk about their pay, because I'm pretty vocal about being like, don't be loyal if they're paying you pennies. Like, they're not loyal to you, So recently somebody came to me and had told me how they asked for a raise and they were told people kill to work here and they didn't get one, right?
Yeah.
Sure, people kill to work there, but are they qualified? Ask yourself, are they bringing to the table what this person is bringing? And frankly, like, you're doing yourself and your company a disservice by making that your gold standard. So it's a shame to hear it's still happening. But, the only way it's going to change is if we stand our ground, if we're open about salaries. If people ask me, I'm happy to tell them what I'm making. I'm happy to tell them what I think they should be making. I'm transparent with my direct reports about what I think their salaries are worth. Like, we have to be honest with each other in this industry or things will not change.
Especially, I mean, yes, agree with all of the
Yes.
above. But I think too, it's especially, if there's any kind of like equity gap, the only way that like we're going to help close it is to have more like transparent conversations. I'm really big about kind of, speaking about money confidently, especially if someone's like coming to me wanting advice or kind of needing to know like what path to take or messaging to kind of go into a meeting with. And I think it's just so important to understand value, especially in a job market like this one, because it is a very demanding, like there are a lot of jobs available right now. And so I think that's also really interesting that companies would still speak to their loyal employees that way if they've continued to be a high performer and show up and want to stay, but
right,
need to be
I
paid
can't
for
imagine
it.
that person who spoke to me wants to stay at that company after receiving that sort of performance review.
Exactly.
Right, and especially, man, I get so heated about this. Like, right now, what is it called? The Great Resignation that's happening,
I've been
especially in
calling it the
millennials
Great
and
Burnout.
the Great Burnout.
That's what I've been
Right,
calling it.
exactly. but everybody's resigning from their jobs.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people that I've worked with in the past, they're saying people at my company have left, you know, since Q3, 15 people left my company and 116 person company or 160 person company.
Mhm.
That's insane.
Mhm.
That might seem, oh, it's just 16 people. No, that's 10% of your workforce.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Right.
Mhm.
Like, but these companies are just sticking their heads into the sand and they're acting like the pandemic hasn't happened. You know, people are like, man, at the beginning of the pandemic or at the beginning of quarantine, but now that things have changed, what's changed?
Mhm.
I still have to wear masks all the time. I'm waiting for my booster shot. Like, I'm on Moderna, so I don't know if I'm getting it. And,
Mhm.
you know, for world travel, there's now a vaccine. Like,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know.
No, I actually am part of the Great Resignation. I left my full-time job in like June.
Wow.
And but a lot of why I left was because I was burnt out from the last, I mean, there's a lot of factors into why anyone makes a decision to leave a job. This was the first time that I left a full-time position to take time off. And I've never been able to do that. I know that's a position of privilege that I'm in to, be able to do that. But I knew that if I didn't take a substantial amount of time to really reset and de-stress, that something bad would happen to me. Like I knew that
Right.
I was at a point where I was going to have some sort of break. I also just wasn't myself. And I don't know, like, I don't know if you've ever experienced burnout. I would love to talk about it if you have. But it's like, I felt like I was like, I don't know who I am or why I'm going through the motions of day to day. Like, that was how, like, all consuming work felt for
Yeah.
me. And I literally woke up, I grinded and had a very challenging job. And then I was so burnt out and tired by the end of the day. All I did was like veg on the couch and then go to sleep and do it all over again.
Yeah. Um, I have experienced extreme burnout to the point where, like you said, I would finish my workday and then I would sit there and I would just think. I remember when I lost my job due to COVID, I was working with a Deco, which is a contractor for Google Stadia. I I cracked a tooth. I just sat there unsure because like my whole game plan, right, had been Google and
Mm-hmm.
eventually I'm gonna get full time and all this stuff. And by the way, I don't blame a single person at Google for what happened. Nobody could predict a pandemic, right?
Right.
Nobody could have predicted what was happening with us. And so when events were shut down, it cut me off from one of like the biggest joys in my life, which is to see the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so me, like every other event manager in COVID, we're all sitting there and we're like, what's the point? Like, and so many people haven't returned to the career. So many people, you know, have retired, quit on Great Resignation. You know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody is relearning, thinking about what they're doing because online events for like all the good they could do. Tell me you're not fatigued from
Mm-hmm.
Zoom, right? Tell me you're not completely over
Mm-hmm.
doing another Zoom call because I am. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do another Zoom party.
Move Makers is made possible by Paidia Gaming. Paidia empowers women and allies of all genders to safely connect, learn, and play. When you join Paidia, you're unlocking access to an inclusive and kind gaming community, tournaments from your favorite content creators and competitors, along with exclusive content aimed at taking your gaming skills to the next level. Make sure you head over to paidiagaming.com today to sign up and follow along on social media at Paidia Gaming. Are there any events in person that you have upcoming with Latinx in gaming or plans for the future to maybe bring some of your community events to these other countries
Man, I would
or
love to
even
do stuff in
locally?
Latin America,
Yeah.
locally. So we want to do Unidos. We want to do in-person parties next year as part of like our Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. I really want to bring content creators from Latin America slash Latinx ones that aren't necessarily privileged to the Twitch cons. Want to bring game devs to GDC. Like those are kind of my dream has always been to buy the person the $800 plane ticket to San Francisco so they could go to GDC because GDC is not affordable, right? Like it's kind of classist to think it is. Not only is it a hotel in San Francisco, which is out the butt expensive for what is a definitely little box, an expensive plane ticket. San Francisco itself, the prices there are really expensive. So I lived in San Francisco before. People are like, "You're judging." Yeah, I lived there for 4 years. I'm
Mm-hmm.
judging. But that, and then the GDC ticket itself, all access tickets are more expensive. How can a game developer in Latin America who makes 800 a month pay for any of that, right? How are we giving these people the actual opportunity to come here, not just from Latin America? Like, I'm thinking of my people, right? But let's think of somebody in the Middle East. Let's think of somebody in Africa. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair to assume and think that we are giving these people the same privileges, right? And so I was talking about somebody earlier, something about this, but I was saying, we're all starting the race at different parts, right? I'm starting way back here, but somebody else is starting even further back from me. And to pretend that we're on even footing is really not acknowledging the privileges that we have. And we should do something to bridge those gaps. I really genuinely think we should.
What advice would you give to anyone listening who may be interested in kickstarting their own community organization? Like, what lessons have you learned? What advice would you give?
I would say that you are never going to please everybody. There's always going to be somebody that thinks they can do it better, that probably could do better for their own interests, that there's going to be, problems, there's going to be drama, but, at the end of the day, don't lose your mission statement. Don't lose the reason you're here. Don't lose why you're doing these things, and be gentle with yourself, be gentle with others. Like, we're in a global pandemic right now. Nobody's happy. Like, I really wish I could pretend like, oh yeah, we're all hunky-dory, right? But like, nobody's really doing great. So think of like the interactions you have like at Starbucks right now. Do you go in and everybody's snapping at each other, but you don't have to join that. You can have calm and collected combos.
No, that's the second time that you've said, be gentle with yourself. And I think it's a really impactful statement. I was actually talking to another guest about kind of like why is it that the voice inside of our head is not like naturally gentle? Have you ever noticed that? Like, it's something that you kind of have to, at least for me, I have to snap myself out of it, where it's like, why am I being so hard on myself? I should be my biggest champion. So it's nice to hear you say like, be gentle, because I think that's something that doesn't come naturally for a lot of people, especially women.
Oh my God, especially women. Are you kidding me? We're like we're criticized from like birth on like being, feminine, being beautiful, like the expiration dates that are set for us at age 20. Like, it's crazy, just like the standards that we hold ourselves to on everything. And from work, like, should I type this punctuation or that punctuation in an email? To things like household chores. I mean, I think of the amount of times where I've had interactions that if a man had had them, nothing would be said. But because I am a woman and because I'm a woman of color, they get taken or misconstrued in the wrong way. And then it's me apologizing for nature versus them meeting me halfway and learning to understand that it's okay that I put a period at the end of a sentence. It's okay if I say something in a direct tone. It doesn't necessarily negate who I am or how I'm talking to you.
Yes, that is something that I have very much learned over the years. And I think for me, I had a conversation with myself where I was like, I don't want to continuously be self-critiquing. And your point earlier about not making everyone happy, I think that was a really big, like, kind of turn for me. Let me backtrack. I realized that the only person who could change my opinion of myself was me. And that was a big wake-up call for how I communicate, because realizing that the way I communicate, if someone receives it in a way that whatever, makes them kind of like stop or think, that's on them, not necessarily on me. I can't control the outcome of every single person. I can only control the outcome of myself. And I also think it's part of our like survival toolkit, right? Where it's like we kind of expect any kind of reaction from any kind of direction. And so because we're kind of prepared for someone to react defensively or someone to react acceptingly, we, I think, are ready for anything that comes. But that does take practice. That does take life skills. I don't think it happens,
Right.
like for me, I would say it was probably closer to like turning 30 whenever I started to feel this way or be able to kind of acknowledge this shift in my confidence.
Completely on the same page. And when people are like, well, they didn't like your tone, I'm like, they could talk to me, they could explain what I said wrong. It's crazy when you think about like all the positive interactions you have, right? All the positive coworkers you have, all the great things you have, and one person has decided to say, oh, I didn't, in a meeting you expressed your opinion very firmly. Yeah. And
And yeah,
would you like me to less firm?
yeah, yeah. Because I think that's the thing too. If it's just like, oh, you are a direct person, like there's nothing wrong or offensive about being a direct person. If you are an offensive person, sure, like that needs to be like considered and like acknowledged. But if the problem is that you are a strong woman who spoke strongly, then that, and it wasn't received well, that is not your problem. That is the person who did not receive that strength very well. That is their problem. And I think that's a big like mental shift that a lot of women kind of face at some point in their careers or just life in general, in realizing that like it's not me. Like I can't be the best version of myself for the individuals I'm speaking to. I just have to be the best version of myself for myself and
Right.
deal with the punches that come.
The onus is on others to communicate with you
Mhm.
if you're upsetting them, right? Like in a workspace, obviously. Constant collaboration is what I genuinely believe in. If you're willing to collaborate with me, and you're willing to tell me, hey, I know you don't mean anything by it, but when you type a sad face, it makes me think a certain way. Or if you just type okay, like it kind of worries me. Sure, it's probably not on me to get them to figure out what that means, but
Mhm.
I'm happy to try and collaborate to better understand our relationship. But when people aren't open to that, then it's not fair to us as women, to people of color. It's not fair to try to fit yourself in, and especially in gaming, in a workspace that
Mhm.
has been predominantly white male and run in a certain manner.
Mhm.
And the women that came before you, might have had a much more
Mhm.
genteel approach to how they talk to you.
Not just with Latinx and gaming, but you have a full-time job too, right?
I
Yeah.
do. I work in marketing.
Awesome. Awesome. On that path to CMO, I love it. What is it, I guess, how are you helping kind of be gentle with yourself in managing? I mean, these probably feel like two full-time jobs.
Yes, at times it does feel like I have two full-time jobs. How I manage my time is really about prioritization. At the end of the day, Latinx and gaming is part-time and it does not bring me funds. And while I wish I could just drop everything I'm doing and focus on it full-time, the reality is I need money more than this cause, which is a shame, which is
Yeah.
genuinely a shame. So I will prioritize work over Latinx and gaming. Um, when Latinx and Gaming has an event going live and we owe sponsors dollars, then I will work overtime to get stuff done.
Mhm.
That's not ideal either. Don't recommend it. I am doing this out of a labor of love and a passionate belief that I can change the industry. But I also I say that not expecting younger women to follow in my footsteps and go, yeah, well that's the way. I got to work 12-hour work days and make sure I'm getting it done. Like that's not a fair thing to say either.
Mhm.
And it would be massively unfair to expect a young woman to take the steps that I have taken to have two jobs at the same time for years and years and years on end. I'm doing these things so they hopefully they don't have to.
What do you want to see more of from gaming communities as a whole? Like, what do you hope the future kind of holds for gaming communities?
I really want gaming communities uh, to start with women at the top in
Mhm.
general. I really want gaming. So much stuff still is run with a lot of men central, specifically white men. And by the way, I say this having nothing against white men. I I want it to be known that I want perspective in there, right? Like
Mhm.
you cannot run something for a community that you don't fully understand. And oftentimes, unless you have researched it immensely, and I do not mean Facebook or YouTube videos, you probably are not a subject matter expert
Right.
at what it is to be gay or what it is to be a person of color or a woman, right? And so I really highly recommend bringing experts into the room and giving them a seat at the table from the get-go. So whether that be from like toxicity and voice chat, right? Like where, I don't know about you, but I haven't used a voice chat in games in like 10 years. Whether it be, you know, starting a community from scratch like ours and making sure that, you know, my leadership team is 3 women and 4 men, or no, 3 men, sorry. And now we just added on 2 more women and 1 more guy. And I'm really happy with that, you know. Still working on more representation, like it's great, but I think we could do better. But as we add more and more people to what we do at Latinx in gaming, I want to remember that we need to add other perspectives. Like somebody did come to us and say, your website is not accessible, right, to accessibility communities. And I was like, you're right. You're 100% right. We need people like you telling me that stuff, right? And you know, we definitely still need the funds to get there and to help revamp it. But this person is important to making sure, and not just them, but many people are important to making sure that we are creating something that is accessible to all.
What single move, if you could pick like one move to share with someone who is like fresh entering the games industry, and you think this is the one move that I would have made or that you would recommend someone today make as they're entering the games industry, what would that move be?
If you're entering the gaming industry, and the one move you should make is to find allies, find people that you can talk to that will be there for you, find a buddy system into the wilds that is gaming. You know, you don't want to go it alone. It is, I went to the Esports Business Summit, and at there, I met this incredible young woman who was there by herself. She didn't know anybody coming in. She didn't come with a buddy system. And I'm just gonna say this, as a woman, don't go to events by yourself. Please have people that are checking in with you. Please have some sort of buddy system, because unfortunately gaming events haven't changed just because it's been COVID. You can get roofied, things can happen to you. There can be situations that you and I, you know, aren't comfortable with. Like, so I told her, I was like, the next time you're at something, I don't care if I'm not there, text me, text your friends back at home, let people know when you're going home, check in. But that's just on the granular level of events, right? But you also need people to be like, hey, I want to take this job offer, but like they're only offering me 30K and like I live in LA. That way people can be like, what? That's crazy. Like you need people to be able to bounce the realities of the industry off of, and you need people that will be there for you and look after you. I'm glad I have those people in my life.
And do you think that's something that, you know, people could find in like a Discord community, like like the Latinx Gaming community and, you know, organizations like that?
Oh, for sure. That's definitely us.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think it's a really good point because so many people, I've been in the industry now for what, 11, 12 years. And so many of like my biggest allies are folks that I've worked with like in 2010. And, you know, they're people that we've kind of like been along for each other's journeys. And I've met a lot of great people along the way, but there are people who are family, like family to me, spend holidays together. And they're people I met in this industry back in 2010 whenever we were really getting things like up and running.
That's crazy.
And so I think it's like for me, I would have never thought like this was not like the path that I set even for myself, you know, like 10 years ago. It just kind of happened. I was like, I love this, and I just kind of ran with it. And now like I'm so blessed with friends and a really great career, and I'm just kind of excited because I know that we're still pretty early in all of this, and I get excited thinking about having a conversation like this 10 years from now, and we're all you know, like even further into it and seeing what changes have been made.
Yeah, I honestly can't wait to see where we go. I love the young women entering the industry. I think they're so cool. They're like, I have a young coworker from Team Liquid. Her name's Katie, and she's just such a baller. I don't think she'll ever watch this, but if she does, she's gonna be surprised. I like love her attitude. I love her no nonsense. I love how hard she works. She's just like the future, right? And she's like almost 10 years younger than me, but it's crazy to see how these women are coming in confident, self-assured, and none of this competitive stuff that started when I was their age. They're just here for each other, and I really love that.
I know we talked earlier about kind of money and being transparent about funds, but what is like a go-to kind of money move that you've learned and that you continue to practice?
Never settle for the first offer.
It's a good one.
Yeah, you can always get better.
And to wrap us up, what is your next move? What can we expect next from you and Latinx in Gaming, and where can folks find you?
You can find my Twitter, twitter.com/silchris88. I am sarcastic on there. I'm sorry in advance. Twitter/Latinos in Gaming.com/Latinos in Gaming. Discord.gg/Latinx. Our next move is to continue to build on the success of the last few years. We're going to try to get more people jobs. We're going to try to do more grant initiatives. If anybody is interested in donating money to those, we are looking into doing grants in people's names, kind of how you would like as an alma mater, you would get a scholarship from there in your name. We want to do that, but for the gaming industry. So if you're interested, reach out. Our email is contact@latinxingaming.com.
Now, I want to thank Cristina for sharing her story with us. I found her confidence to be so uplifting and felt like she was someone that I had known for years. And I also really appreciated her transparency around the importance of the initiatives she and her team are leading at Latinx in Gaming, especially whenever it comes to equity and access to resources and attendance to industry events that I've truthfully always taken for granted. Now, if you want to learn more or get involved, make sure you connect with Cristina or head over to latinxingaming.com to learn more, and then get out there and make your move.